This is the Guns Magazine podcast, episode number 94. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. First, before we get started, let's talk about our great sponsors. 1791 Gunleather is the presenting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast, and they would like you to know their appreciation for the Second Amendment fuels their passion for gun leather and its representation of the original patriots of this great nation. 100% Certified American Steerhide joins 4 generations of professional leather artisans to create the perfect firearms holster. Carry your firearm with pride, knowing that each 1791 gun leather holster is handcrafted to be the best holster for your firearm. See their full product lineup at 1791gunleather.com. The supporting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast is Hodgdon Powder. Available in granular powder and pellets, Hodgdon's family of 777 powders gives muzzleloading enthusiasts a quick cleaning, low-odor black powder substitute for rifle and pistol applications. To learn more, visit Hodgdon.com. Well, this is a special episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. Not because of the guest, but because it's a little bit of a departure from our normal format. This week, I'm going to interview me. Actually, it's not so much an interview, but I'm going to share something that many other people seem to think is useful and worthwhile. So I'm trusting their judgment rather than my own giant inflated ego. Today, I'm going to cover something called the 50 Rules. This was taken from my insider column in the September 2021 issue of Guns Magazine. And as I said earlier, it received a considerable amount of positive reader mail, which is very gratifying. Along the way, somebody suggested our podcast audience might also enjoy it. So here we are. This column is actually decades old. It started out as a short list of things I wrote to myself about personal safety and security. Then over the years, it grew longer and longer. I've always liked it, and long story short, finally decided to update it yet again and use it as an insider column. So that's the backstory and rationale. So without further ado, here we go with the 50 Rules. I will hereby lay claim to the spurious honor of being the world's foremost good example of a bad example, especially in the arena of personal safety. Through a lifetime spent as a cop, adventurer, and shooter, I've managed to make nearly every mistake possible, yet live to tell about it. Fortunately, I'm also a testament to why luck and a benevolent supreme deity are a nice fallback when you're dumb. And, let's be frank, almost all of us are dumb once in a while. Well, maybe not Masad Ayub, but pretty much everybody else does foolish things on occasion. This overview of personal qualification or disqualification, depending on your viewpoint, is given to explain why I have both the temerity and experience to present my own collection of the 50 most important rules of personal safety. They're not the only principles for dealing with danger, especially of the social and interpersonal variety, but I think they're a pretty good start. Some of this information comes firsthand from countless real-deal folks I've had the honor of knowing. Some of it comes from training, while still more comes from direct observation of rapidly coagulating pools of blood, and the remainder was learned at the University of Life School of Hard Knocks, Bachelor of Science in Blunt Trauma and Gunshot Wounds. I'll allow some of these points are a bit facetious and snarky, but then again, so is life and so am I. So, here we go with my 50 rules for life. Rule number 1. There is no ultimate man stopper, except perhaps a 105mm high explosive shell. Number 2. Shot placement is far more important than caliber, energy, velocity, momentum, or advertising hype. Remember that the .22 long rifle has killed things as large as angry grizzly bears, while a miss with a .458 Winchester does nothing more than punch holes in the blue sky. Number 3. Wearing cool guy gear doesn't make you cool. Brand new cool guy gear will make you look like a poser. A plate carrier, along with the Standard multiple witty morale patches, of course, worn on the range merely for visual effect when you've never actually worn one in the field, makes you an ultra poser with extra posing sauce. Number 4. The bigger the cleavage on the advertising copy, generally the worse the product. Nowadays, with political correctness being in fashion, you see less and less of this. Of course, some of us sure miss the old days. Number 5. Fear is natural. Embrace it and learn to use it to your advantage. Invite it into your home, make it dinner, and let it drink your best bourbon, because being fearless means taking stupid risks. Number 6. The more combat a person has seen, the less likely they are to talk about it. Number 7. Scars are nature's way of saying, I screwed up. They also make for good graphic training aids, and sometimes you can even get a free beer, though the cost-benefit ratio is usually not worth it. Number 8. Courage is the first requirement of success in a crisis. You know, it's easy to talk the talk, but you really should test your courage periodically in some way to make sure it hasn't died of inattention, or maybe never really existed in the first place. Number 9. Even that ruggedized, fully redundant, satellite-enhanced, broadband data-capable, multi-million-dollar tactical communication network will break down under adverse conditions such as dew or nightfall. Number 10. A sense of humor will get you through anything from a gunshot wound to a divorce. I'll admit it's awfully hard to think of droll comments when you're suffering a sucking chest wound during your divorce court proceedings, but it does help to lighten the mood somewhat. Number 11. Everything on the internet should be considered for entertainment purposes only. By now, hopefully everyone has realized the handle Super Death Seal Killer Commando 99 on the internet forum is probably a morbidly obese 13-year-old gamer on a laptop. Number 12. Gun store clerks come in 2 flavors, aficionados and salesmen. It's your job to know the difference. Number 13. Any product with the word miracle in the title isn't. Any shooting technique named after its developer, as named by said developer, is probably the same thing. Number 14. Trust no one except your mother, and keep an eye on her. Number 15. Being alert will prevent 99% of problems. If you're alert, you'll be much more ready for the remaining 1% which really are a problem. Number 16. One of the best well-known rules of combat. Do unto others as they would do unto you. Just make sure you do it first. Number 17. Death loves a braggart. Everybody else loves to see him get kicked in the groin. Therefore, don't ever brag about your tacticoolness. Number 18. There's no such thing as a fair fight. If you fight, don't be fair. This is why many old, slow, creaky guys are still very dangerous. Number 19. We should do more to include our loved ones in crisis preparations and training. Number 20. If you know it all, you don't. Number 21. There is someone who is tougher, faster, a better shot, or just plain luckier somewhere out there in the world. Just remember this when you're considering a fight you could have otherwise avoided. Number 22 is the corollary to the previous rule. It is, there is no shame in avoiding a problem. This is otherwise known as wisdom. Number 23. The first rule of knife fighting is, don't get into a knife fight. If you are in a knife fight, the best self-defense technique is applying a magazine full of large caliber bullets as quickly as possible. Number 24. Anything and everything can and will fail at the worst possible moment. Plaintiff's Exhibit Number 1, Viagra. Number 25. We could all use a little more cardiovascular exercise. Number 26. When in doubt, doubt. Your little inner voice is worlds smarter than you give it credit for. Number 27. Virtually everything you see on commercial television is staged. Everything, as in everything. Number 28. If you don't practice a movement at least 500 times, and some will say 2,000, you will never ever perform it correctly under stress. This is an ironclad, unbreakable rule we all ignore. Rule number 29. A vehicle will kill you just as dead as a high-powered rifle. Always respect traffic. Rule number 30. No instructor is God. Some can reach demigod status after decades, many of them are pretty good, and a few of them should be prosecuted for false advertising. Beware the cult of personality, especially if you are new to firearms training classes. Almost everybody seems brilliant when you're new. Rule number 31. There's nothing wrong with blued guns, revolvers, leather holsters, or firearms that don't include cutting-edge aerospace technology. Then again, there's nothing wrong with black guns either. Point is, don't be dogmatic. Number 32. The human brain is the deadliest weapon ever invented. Rule number 33. You'll never wake up knowing today is the day. Rule number 34. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Rule number 35. If you can't tie a trustworthy knot, change a tire, kill your own food, or perform basic first aid procedures, you're not really prepared. Rule number 36. There is no one weapon system, tactic, technique, or school of thought to address every situation. Those who believe such things are positively delusional. Rule number 37. Murder is wrong. While killing is sometimes necessary and excusable, make sure you're okay with this idea. If you're not, you shouldn't carry a weapon. Number 38. You are personally responsible for the right to keep and bear arms. You need to take this responsibility seriously, or the gun magazines of the future might be pretty dull, such as cover story, a bar of soap and a sock, the ultimate man stopper. Rule number 39. There is always one more. One more gun, one more problem, one more knife, one more bad guy. Rule number 40. Our opponents are frequently smarter than we give them credit. Rule number 41. A bad outcome in the legal system after a justified use of force can be just as devastating as a major gunshot wound. Know your legal rights, responsibilities, and how to act after a use of force. Rule number 42. Never, ever get between two people fighting, especially women. Rule number 43. Train yourself to relax during and after stressful events. You'll perform better, and you might even live longer. That's advice I need to take myself. 44. Go somewhere inspiring and meditate on the concept of honor. Do this regularly, and you're less likely to do something cowardly or immoral. Rule number 45. Guns and alcohol just don't mix. If you drink, you must be unarmed. If you can't live by this rule, don't drink. This rule does personally chafe me, but I follow it religiously. Rule number 46. Never stand in a doorway. Rule number 47. Use light to your advantage. Whenever possible, just flick light switches on rather than using your flashlight. Then again, if you aren't proficient with flashlight shooting techniques, you're at a major disadvantage in many dangerous encounters. Number 48. Always carry a knife, a gun, and a light. 2 is better, but 1 is critical. Number 49. Preparedness, or being tactical, should be an unspoken lifestyle, not a publicly shared hobby. And finally, number 50. Buy a 3-year subscription to Guns Magazine for every one of your friends, family members, acquaintances, and random homeless people on the street. You'll end up richer, thinner, have more friends, and be richly rewarded in the afterlife, or my name isn't Hillary Clinton. That's it for this reading of the 50 Rules of Life as printed in the September issue of Guns Magazine. I hope you've enjoyed it and maybe even picked up an idea or two. After all, my goal was to make us all a little more safe as we toddle through this vale of tears we call living. So if I've said anything to smooth out a bump or two in your road, my mission has been accomplished. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Guns Magazine was first in the business, and we're bringing you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions or comments about the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Please make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast catcher, YouTube, and of course at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com and AmericanCop.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share a favorite episode or some kind words on your own social media. And please don't forget to check out the presenting sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast, 1791 Gunleather. Visit them at 1791gunleather.com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent T. Now get out there and get shooting.